Theory podcast.
Yeah. Boom. What's up, people? Welcome to Creative Theory Podcast, a show that brings you conversations with visual artists about how they got to where they got, what their day-to-day is like, what their struggles are, thoughts in the art world, struggles with the art world. I think we're going to get in there today. It's going to get dark. Welcome to the show. Today in studio in Vancouver at Save on Radio, I got a very, very special fella. He's an illustrator and an entertainment artist living in Vancouver, Canada, who has work experience as a concept artist and designer in feature film, animated TV, and games. A member of Humble Drawing Club, I must admit, right. A very good member, and also a true supporter of an art scene, I would say. You're the one, Jake Collinge. By the way, I didn't ask how to say your last name.
Oh, it's Collinge.
Collinge. Yeah, damn, yeah. Okay, I got it. Good.
I think I've been told it's possibly French and it's Collinge, but I don't do that. So.
You don't want to sound that fancy?
No.
Not that special. Thanks for joining the show. I really appreciate it.
I've been kind of glued to it since I found it, and I wanted to support you since I listened to the first one.
Well, it really means a lot, and from the conversations we've had before, I think we always just dive deep, and I imagine this is going to be a really good one. I enjoy talking to you quite a bit. You know what's interesting? I was just even looking at your description of yourself on your website, and you say illustrator, entertainment artist first, and then you say designer second. Is that a specific distinction you try to make?
I don't think so, no. I think it's just you go by many names once you're a generalist. Like I was a 3D artist, and then illustration's so broad. Designer is what they call you in animation. Yeah. Concept art is what they call you in video games and film.
So you don't really care which one it is?
Not really, no.
But and so in the end, you just artist?
Sure.
What do you go by?
Yeah, I don't mind that.
I'm trying to put labels on you right here, but we don't have to choose.
Oh.
Yeah, so working film, TV, and you are very versatile artist, which I want to get into. I'm looking, in fact, actually, before we continue, for people who want to see Jake's art, just go to jakecollinge.com and on Instagram at collinge_jake. But I would say go to your website because you have a really great variety of work and like a true artist, you do a lot of study, so it's pretty cool to see.
Oh, thanks.
So if you're listening, get on there while we're talking. But I thought we would start, but do you want to talk a little bit about what your life is like now as an artist? Where you at? What's your work like?
Well, right now I'm freelancing for a couple different outfits, so I'm getting to touch on a bit of animated feature, a bit of larger budget games, and then also a small pitch doing backgrounds for a cartoon. So right now I'm kind of like hopping around doing something different every day. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. Mostly background, environment, conceptual, all the way through props and some characters too. So,
is that ideal for you? Do you like the variety?
I think so. Yeah, I think many aspects of my practice or career, whatever you want to call it, is kind of generalist focused.
And now that you're freelancing, do you see yourself pursuing that path or that kind of work-life situation?
I've already, flipped in between a few times. In between a studio job, you might have 9 months of employment, and then you got to be quick on your toes. Sometimes you get lucky through your network, and freelance just pops up out of nowhere. So I've already, hopped the fence a few times, and the grass can always be greener. There's sometimes I'm really outgoing, and I just really want to be around people, and it flops all the time.
And then other times just want to stay at home and draw.
Sometimes, like sometimes you can spend that year doing freelance, and it's a little more lonely, but you can watch your craft maybe excel because the pressure is a little different.
And there's definitely
it's a good challenge. Like I'd recommend to anyone, if you've always only done freelance or you've only done studio, like it's such a great challenge to hop to different modes of working, different responsibilities, new projects, working with new art directors. Like I think that's been a big part of my wanting to be a generalist and try different things.
But while you say generalist, though, I mean you still tend pretty close to 2D, just drawing, imagining, designing, right?
Yeah, I suppose like being moldable too, like as I've done some book covers, pitch work.
Okay, yeah.
I used to be a 3D artist, and that's how I actually got into design in the first place.
And then you escaped it. You
Oh,
escaped the 3D
it's-
artist life.
There is a little bit of a reason why I did it, but it's actually been incredibly helpful. So on film jobs where there's really big sets to imagine, it's incredibly helpful to be able to mock things up and pass that through the pipeline. So it's all coming full circle anyways.
It's same with me going through animation, but why did you stop doing 3D and then, or I mean, you didn't stop, but you kind of went to design and concept art a lot more?
I think it might have been like a little bit of the creative control of figuring out the what, where there's a lot of the how in the modeling. And it depends on the production. Sometimes you'll get a rough sketch, and as a modeler, you get incredible freedom to solve it and figure it out. The easiest way I could explain it is like if you were given a drawing of a bar stool, most people are going to execute it the same way.
Okay.
So that's where I could picture the drawback of the freedom sometimes.
This is so interesting you mentioned it, because having worked with various modelers, I notice how many are creative and how many are not. And it's interesting what you're talking about. It seems like in your case, you would have been the person where you're probably more happy with being given a rough sketch, so you can still add some creativity, right, and imagination to it.
I think so.
Which I feel like as a designer, I kind of preferred, because then it feels like a team effort. It feels like, hey, I started this, but you're building on top of it.
Yeah, for sure. Like probably one of my most favorite film productions at Rainmaker quite a while ago. It was incredibly collaborative. There'd be people from departments drifting back and forth, asking for extra information when they needed it, and you actually felt good that you were taking something you created, giving it to someone else to make it better, and the next department will make it better. And when you really feel that, the teamwork comes out and the quality goes up.
That's so good.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the ideal way.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's always like that, but unfortunately it's not always like that.
Yeah.
So the freelance life, I know there's a bit of a kind of romanticism around it, I think, because you're working technically, well, not for yourself, but you're controlling your time, when that means you can make more personal work. Has that been true?
It's been true, but except for recently, like having the
Took on
three
too much?
different projects is a little bit too much. And I'm very, very dedicated. I have a stop clock. I put my best in every assignment.
Oh, wow.
And so sometimes, sometimes I'll just drain myself by pacing it out in a way where I don't have as much time to do my own work, which is very important to me. So I have to learn to control that.
I was actually thinking about this. You said you use a clock when you start painting, just like, okay, let's go.
Yeah,
That's smart.
I charge hourly for all of the current jobs, and I think it's my due diligence to, put in the honest work, because once you start, going down the slippery slope of
Internet?
we're just, in any way abusing your freedom of being able to bill and charge per hour based on drawings, which it's hard to judge a drawing and how long it took, as you know.
Sure.
But you don't want to start toying with that. And I just want to, I picked an hourly rate. I'm going to follow through with that.
Yeah.
End of story. So I use a clock to kind of time all that out.
That's a great idea. One thing I found, I just actually had this idea recently, or it's not a new idea, but I was thinking if I go back to freelance, I have to time myself, because one thing I've heard many people say, and I've experienced it as well, is that I didn't know when to stop working. Because what if I took, a little slightly longer lunch, and then because, I went for a run, and then I'm back to drawing, and at 7, I'm like, I don't remember if I did all the hours, and did I make a coffee in between? While you're, like, if you're at a full-time, like, if you're at a job at a studio, I don't know, you want to go get a coffee, it doesn't seem like, I don't know if you're counting it, maybe people do. Maybe I'm a bad person.
Not so much. I mean, like, like long lunches happen. You have your planned breaks for a reason. Sometimes you get slammed with a lot of work. Sometimes it slows down, and extra coffees are totally fine.
Yeah, but I just found myself when freelancing, I was like, I don't know if I should keep working.
You're exactly right, and I get guilty if I don't know. I'll usually wind the clock back as opposed to forward if I really don't know, and the stop clock it got rid of my guilt,
Okay, it's all about the clock.
Good
to know.
Yeah. Well, at least for me,
Because you've been, you said, in games and TV and movie productions, kind of got to see it all. Is there, I guess, I don't know, maybe what do you value about each, or which one do you prefer? It hasn't gotten to a point where you just want to just stay in one world?
I guess as far as the entertainment stuff, there's not a big difference as a designer in many productions. Obviously, if you're on a mobile team of very few artists, you're probably going to have to do a lot more different tasks. If you're sending assets overseas to be modeled after you design them, very different types of tasks.
Good luck.
And yeah, and that's not dictated by game or animation. It could happen in both. I can say from working on a game of a larger scope where the levels are elaborate and diverse and there's a lot of art, that can be even better than animation sometimes, in that there's a even larger array of things to design. If it's a big open world kind of game, there's a lot to it, whereas dealing with locked cameras, you can kind of get more specific right away.
And I feel like if you do love design, for games, you really get to think about how things work, or maybe a lot more, just because more and more things are now interactable, and so you really have to think hinges and construction. And
there's interactive states, gameplay requirements. I guess you're not thinking about like framing things unless it's an artwork that will launch a new environment, for example. You're not thinking about the compositional arrangement of the whole in some cases, because you don't have a fixed camera. The player can wander and look at whatever they want. You got to try and make it look good all over.
A lot less cheating. I like it. From the small, I guess, some game work I've done, it's been fun for that reason. Have to think a lot more, I think.
Right.
Not that you wouldn't in film or TV. It's just that challenge is a lot higher. Where, like you said, if you're not painting or working to camera, now everything matters. And it's then for animation, it's even more difficult as well, I would say, because it's so much easier to get nice curves when you're and arcs when you're animating to a camera versus any angle should look good. Anyways, is there? And so what I want to ask you is that, is there a difference between what keeps you in this industry now versus why you got into it in the first place?
Well, it is, I must say, like as a preface to anything, I might say that about my displeasure towards the industry. I mean, it's a great job to be a creative and be able to make money doing it. The part of the drawback I'm having now is that whether or not you make anything that's really adding to society is not up to you. It's kind of a bit of a lottery. Like, will the TV show have wholesome messages and actually have something human in it, or is it just going to be popcorn? Like, is your game going to flop and no one's going to ever play it, or is it going to be a success and have some impact? Like, it's not up to your control, and that's been a little bit of the thing I'm working with recently. Not super recently, but
But I guess is that something you just didn't really think about when you got into it? Because what were the reasons you got into?
Probably just I played a lot of games when I was young, and I always took all the art classes in high school. There was a presentation at my small town school from the Art Institute, and that kind of pulled me to Vancouver. And I'm like, yeah, like games totally make sense. I love them, and I draw a lot. So it's a little bit casual on making the decisions, but I don't regret anything till now about it.
It seems unfortunate that at this point, like you're saying, if you want to the product you're working on to make some sort of impact or be valuable, I mean, unless you're high up and in the writing rooms, maybe it's very far. It's so far out of your control.
That, or I guess like there's more independent options now. There's more people to pitch funding to. Sometimes it's just you just want to do solo work. Like you just want to be an illustrator, be inspired by the real world, say something visually, put it out there, and that can be empowering. So I think if I could keep up with that, I'll
harness that.
I'll be okay working in entertainment. But the key word is entertainment for me. That's where everything hinges. Is it entertainment first, or is it something about the human condition and soulful first that is also entertaining?
And let's be honest, It's about entertainment.
People, people
Yeah.
people tend to take the easier option with art, I find a lot. And if you're tasked with watching a really emotionally difficult movie, or something in the Marvel universe, and you're with some friends, what are you going to pick, right?
Yeah,
I think it's kind of what we are asking for as an audience.
Even trying to think about how many impactful, whether it's movies or TV shows, whatever, games that I've consumed. I mean, those come occasionally and then make waves because they're so special, but then overall, right, it's not so. One thing I found, I don't know if how early you get in the process you get to see what the project will be about, because usually, if we're getting on, let's say it's a TV show, how early can you read the script and really try to figure out what it's all going to be about before, not that it's before it's too late, but before you realize that you're committing a year or 2 years of your life to this thing, and what it's gonna be.
not usually until you start, right?
Exactly.
Like you kind of might get to take a peek at the art and hear a little bit about it, and then once you sign up and you're there, they usually throw a script on your desk, and you're aware that they're going to rewrite this thing.
Hey Jake,
a lot.
so we want to sell toys. They're going to be cars, so make sure when you draw them, don't make them too good or too complicated, because we won't be able to make it.
Oh man, yeah.
Have you heard that?
I've actually, I've said no to a job that was going to be primarily about translating toys, because have a lot of other annoying things I care about, such as just consumerism and the environment, and I don't want to just be making a bunch of plastic things.
Yeah.
Like, it's inevitable.
I guess, and honestly, I mean, now we're talking about it, and I'm thinking about it a lot more. But it's sorry.
Sorry.
No. But it's easy. It's easy not to, because I feel like for the longest time, for a lot of us as artists, the goal is just like, I just want to make a living making art. Because up to that point, until you get to be, until you're comfortable in a studio, and the kind of the blinders, or what's like something the first couple of years wear off of, just like, man, I get to make art, and then you're like, wait, what is this all about?
Yeah.
So it's hard to think about in the beginning, early on.
For sure. Yeah, I kind of wish I was introduced to like a broader spectrum of art. I think that's been one of the pivotal things, is like you could just be into entertainment art from the get-go, and you just stay in that zone.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at the big picture of what art can do for the world and the many ways it acts,
Mm-hmm.
That starts to really broaden your perspective on what you're doing, at least for me.
So when have you noticed that? When has this change occurred in you?
Sometimes I made some very conscious decisions to like step away from very popular online hubs like CG Hub and
Good old ArtStation.
Yeah, and I made a really conscious choice like several years ago to just step away from that, because if you live only in that one sphere, you're going to get inspired by and contribute to that one sphere. So it might be a performance artist that, I thought there's not much to offer there, but one day you see a performance and it is so emotional and concise and a different experience that you're open to different ways of communicating or thinking now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's happened with obviously like songwriting.
Mm-hmm.
I get really into lyrics of lasting artists that I really respect, picture
Mm-hmm.
books, movies, obviously.
But not those hubs. They don't offer that?
If you are interested in being like the best entertainment artist ever, I mean, it's perfect. But if you start to have a hunger to look outside of that sphere of art,
Mm-hmm.
I think it is actually kind of bad to expect to find yourself within the realms of what's popular.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you start to end up having like the same idols as everyone else, and I find myself just trying to claw way closer to the human experience in some perspective.
Yeah.
Less escapism, more real world. I think that's where
Yeah.
I'm actually at inside.
And that's why, I mean, you use that word entertainment industry, and I think this is the perfect time to use it, to use that saying, because it's very true. And I think it's quite easy to consume a lot of just pretty, beautiful imagery without context. Especially, I mean, you and I, we do representation work. So the technical aspect of it, is, like, I think always speaks loud. But so do you find yourself when you look at, I mean, when you're flooded with just really cool imagery, but not a lot of context, or just, it's, I keep using this example here, but, a bunch of orcs in armor and half-naked women running around was like shooting magic. That's how that's how it works. But is that affecting you in a bad way, do you think?
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. I did teach online for several years, and I would have this discussion with students just to find out, like, is this inspiring you, or is this kind of belittling you and making you feel like you're, a fish in a big sea of people who are better than you? And it fluctuates, I think. Like, for me, I found, like, oh, it'd be so cool to do something like that. And then other days it's like, oh, that took so many hours. I don't have that in me. Or I will not be that good. Or who am I, because I'm not into these things. And it's all what you bring to it, obviously. But
yeah. But you don't have to look at, game art and animation art to feel that way. You can go to a gallery and feel exactly the same way too.
Yeah.
Or is that not helpful either?
Oh no, I think it's obviously your perspective at the time, and your friends, and, like, if everything is channeling into one particular niche all the time, your perspective's probably going to be centered around that. So my perspective probably shifted as I learned more about other realms of art, that the more I looked at that, the more I felt it was distancing itself from me.
That was...
I don't know if that makes sense. It's kind of...
No, I understand.
Yeah.
I understand why you're trying to get away, to kind of get away from it, and yet, you're still working in this field. So what don't tell anyone. What's keeping you?
It is a really fulfilling, creative, challenging job where you get to do art, and the people can be amazing. The project could be amazing. I don't know. I would like to find some wiggle room in, like, the distant future where I might go down different paths, and I'm open to that. I mean, like, nobody's locked in their fixed career path, the world we live in right now. So there's lots of avenues I would like to go down. But yeah, maybe the entertainment aspect will always have to be there in some form, because the world's not looking out for you, right? You
Pays
gotta
the bills.
Yeah.
Hey, because that's what I was gonna say. So actually, this morning I just uploaded some art to ArtStation.
Yeah.
Some stuff I'm allowed to release some work from a previous project finally. So,
oh, nice. Yeah.
I mean, and I'm putting it up there so that it's basically having an online portfolio, because eventually I'll probably need more jobs or more work. So, in that sense, it's hard to escape it unless either you're really comfortable, you're always going to have something in the future, or you are trying to lean away. But it's just from what I've seen, to be an artist and to make a living, this is probably the not safer, but it's a little bit more steady route, rather than let's say you're going to go freelance illustration, and it's not impossible. It's just you're now competing in a bigger market with less jobs, or bigger amount of people trying to get this piece.
It might be, yeah. I mean, you have to be a professional, put yourself out there. You can't exist if you're not on the internet. Like, my most long-term freelance job right now came from just me posting more cartoony as the world went on. Like, my art seemed to get a little more wacky, a little more cartoony overall, and just from sharing it, that's how a job came up. So I think leaning away is the right point. Like, you have to be kind of engaged in some ways, but leaning away is key, because you might go there to be inspired, but you're not going there to mimic and compare yourself.
To become
right?
one of the masses.
Yeah, you get just like how social media and like Facebook's pretty rotten, but there are still uses where you can be aware of what's going on and utilize it in a healthy way. And that's what I've had to do is, I will also, if I could preface this whole thing and just say, like, I was really into, science fiction, fantasy, Lord of the Rings stuff when I was younger. But now that's like, it's fading, and I'm not going to fight it and pretend that I want to do the orcs and the spaceships and all that. And although I have, when I've been hired to do,
Yeah.
like I worked on the Ratchet and Clank
Yeah.
series, that movie, and it was fun to get into some sci-fi for the job.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go to personal life, it's been dissolving, and I'm not going to ignore that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have to be true to myself and try and make things that are me and what I care about.
Is this what getting jaded is like?
Oh man, yeah. I thought of that
You think about
yesterday,
that, yeah?
actually. Yeah, like it could be a natural process. Like when I'm going to sketch groups, and anyone that knows me knows I like to get, like you said, serious a little bit quick. And to me, it's just trying to be critical and learn from other people's experience as well. So when I find someone that's been around a while, you could say it's a little bit jaded, or they're just learning more about themselves, because there are a lot of people that do incredible entertainment work, and they still love it, or they love it more than 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, jaded couldn't be the word to go by.
I love it.
It evolved, maybe.
There you go. Jaded is a little bit too pessimistic in that sense.
Yeah, I want to be like seen as critical and not pessimistic, which people often confuse, right?
Yeah. And I value those conversations we have, even though they go like in a critical route. I think it's almost like it's just a healthy dose of reality. It's almost just like, I feel like it's almost as if you spend a year of most of your free time going to playing video games, and 1 year you like kind of awoke and you're like, what happened to this year? Oh wait, I just played video games. And I think it can be the same way. It's like, hey, so what did you spend the last 2 years of your life on? You know, I made this thing that I don't know, promotes kids to eat a lot of bubble gum and play with plastic or so. Like you're saying, I mean, this. I mean, I realize I sound pessimistic, but it can be that as well. And to me, it's just interesting that I don't know if you can bypass, as a especially artist, entertainment artist or whatever, you can bypass this middle stage where you are pretty happy just making all these cool things, and then you get to a point where, which is what you're talking about, all of a sudden, and then it's probably maybe that's just something that comes with age, where you're just start to think about a little bit less inward, more outward, right? And then you just realize you want to make an impact as a human, right?
I can see that for sure.
It's almost like a natural progression where I don't know if you've met many people who escaped that route early on in their, whatever art career or whatever you want to call it, and decided not to go down the path of, I don't know, making mobile games, and then started doing something that's meaningful to them, I guess. Have you met anyone like that?
I'm trying to think. Like, I'm positive I have, because I usually ask people like a few too many questions, and they just want to like chill out, and I'm like trying to like find out why did you do that, and like,
but tell me the truth.
Yeah, like let's not do like the small talk for an hour. Like,
exactly.
Tell me your feelings. Like,
get into the true stuff.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I did come from a small town. Maybe that affected how I see people. Like when I see like the district we're in right now, like the downtown east side, I'm quite heavily inquisitive and compassionate about it, whereas a lot of other people, they kind of like to just turn away from it. And that's definitely something core to my character that I'm thinking about a lot, is like, some things must have led me to want to be compassionate to people who seem like they're not able to contribute. And it'll take some investigation to figure out why exactly that is. But that's coming back to the whole entertainment escaping from reality to have a break from our stressful life, which we need,
There's
versus
value in that. Yeah.
observing and being in the real world to say something about it. Maybe I'm over speaking, but it seems really noble to try and use art to do something that's beyond showing off your drafting skills and your quality and abilities,
For sure. Yeah, that's you and I spoken about that. Is that I'm hoping to find more ways in doing that, and especially once you start hanging out with people outside of the art community, you realize they don't really care about art, and maybe that's fair. And so then, what are things that kind of put us on the same ground? And it's just like, especially if you hopefully like spending time with the right people, it's we're pretty lucky to live in North America, so I think we have a responsibility to, I don't know, just help out, because life is pretty easy here.
Yeah, if you keep some perspective, and everyone has different ways to keep that perspective. Like when one of my friends said this little blurb that really stuck with me, and he's like, if I am very privileged, which I am by living here, and I want to make art, it's an absolute waste for me to not make art, because a lot of people around the world could only dream of having the space and the time and a life where they could just express something.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And he's like, you don't want to like squander that by, producing nothing lasting with your time and energy.
And hopefully meaningful. But then the downside of being so privileged is that you don't struggle as much, and struggle makes good art, I think.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, maybe it comes out in hindsight. Like you will just, go on a tangent with your art, and you'll be really into certain things for a while, and in hindsight you'll put all the pieces together and realize why you're passionate about that thing right now. And it's very hard to discover yourself in the moment and analyze yourself on what you're doing and why you're doing it right now. But when you look back a year, and then a year before that, and a year before that, you can really see the pivotal moments that got you here, and they're almost all learning something outside the sphere you're in, whether it's picking up a book on like philosophy that you've never thought of before, or opening yourself up to this really weird sculpture in a museum and actually asking questions. And then now I have like so much more patience to just observe sculpture. Like, you want to go and look at this piece of fine art and mock it, I'm going to stand there longer and see if I can get something from it,
That's a really cool perspective.
Yeah.
So this is where you're at? Is this
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a culmination of little experiences that pulled me outside of my jerkish self, where I was about to shun something. I learned from it, and it's unrelated seemingly, but it comes back,
You saw that Banksy piece, and then you're like, it shredded itself.
Amazing.
And you were going to hate on it, but then wait.
Yeah, maybe not real, but,
Yeah. So,
I mean, if I was selling a piece of art for $1 million, I think I would check out that frame pretty close. So
they knew what was going on.
Yeah.
They knew what was going on. It's part of the thing.
Yeah.
I believe it made it more expensive. The spectacle.
Yeah.
Anyways.
I gave the thumbs up, but yeah, totally did.
So you didn't judge. You appreciated it.
Yeah.
I think before we move forward, because I do want to keep digging into this. I want to know what your plan is. Having said all of this. And to me, it's interesting. It's almost like you're in a transition point of hopefully kind of escaping the entertainment and trying to move more towards meaning, whatever. And so I'm curious to see where you're going to take it. But maybe first, do you want to give us a little origin story of Jake?
Oh, well, yeah. I don't know if I'm ever going to like escape it, because there are incredible products that are made in the entertainment realm. Yeah. So I think there's always going to be some kind of duality between me doing my own experiments, or finding the right type of illustration work or the right production that is entertaining.
And you said it yourself, there's place for entertainment. I mean,
we're
not going to escape it. It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. There's value to it. It's just a matter of maybe quality or beyond surface level entertainment, right? Yeah.
I think the biggest, I'll answer the first part of your question as well, but the biggest thing I think I'm noticing, and I'm not an expert on anything I'm blabbing about, but the volume at which we are making what I would call entertainment first products, and the volume at which we are asking for them is the problem, because you need entertainment. Like, I have friends that are nurses, and they say, hey, you need to get away from that depressing day and escape and feel good. Like, you need some of that entertainment. And you know what, me too. Just in very small amounts. Like, I don't need it very much, but some people do. So I recognize that, but I think it's just the volume at which we're asking for entertainment. But yeah, as far as going back, I think I covered a lot of the fundamental parts of the, going to the Art Institute, game art and design course. It was 2D and 3D.
Which city are you from?
From 100 Mile House.
Okay.
So little place in middle of BC.
Is it northern or is it middle?
Northern.
Yeah?
Northern, yeah.
Yeah. Cold?
pretty cool. Yeah, could be worse. But is there any other questions on my path to here that like are more specific than?
I like how quick that story was. There was almost nothing. How did you did you draw as a kid or anything?
Yeah,
like that?
I don't know. I felt like I touched on that a little bit. Like I would have some comics and
Okay.
I would draw Spider-Man as when I was younger. Wouldn't dare to now.
And then so you saw Art Institute, and then how come you picked the 3D side of it? That what was, because you had a lot of choices. Could have done so many.
It was a little more, I guess, generalized when I went there. I went there in like 2005, and it was game art and design. You did a little bit of everything. You built a board game. You did life drawing. You learned Maya. Then you had your portfolio section, and that's where you could pick: do I want to be a game designer? Do I want to be character or environment modeler? And then from there, I went into doing online casino games, like 3D racehorse.
The soul-sucking stuff. Huh?
Oh yeah, yeah. But like at that point, I didn't have a problem with it. It's my first job. You're doing like 3D slot machines.
Yeah.
Sometimes the themes were fun. There's a lot of problem solving because we were making our own like 3D engine to run them,
Nice.
and from there, I got a little bit of design simultaneously because our team was like 3 people making these games, 3 or 4. And after that, I got my first job at Rainmaker doing design. And it's kind of interesting. I have one of those stories where like I got to the interview, they looked through my portfolio more closely, and then I could tell that they were like, the art director was waning a little bit. Ooh. And he's like, like he's looking for like traditional like blueprint architecture kind of layouts, orthographics, elevation views. And he was like waning a bit. So I'm like, is there something you're looking for kind of thing? And he's like, yeah, there's no this and that. There's no interiors. There's no whatever. And I'm like, oh, sure. Just like, give me a test. I'll try it.
Yeah, wow.
And he ended up doing that. He just pointed to a weird building, like an organic kind of building in my sketchbook and said, show me the inside of that.
Yeah.
From many views, and I went ahead and did that enough to get started.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people do talk. I hear a lot of people getting into this kind of work, and then a lot of us started out drawing, and I think it seems like a lot of people do want to get back to drawing and designing more. So it's kind of an interesting story. But so you worked on prior to that job, you must have been working on designs just by yourself, or?
Oh yeah, like drawing after hours, going to drawing groups.
It's the only way.
Yeah, but obviously I didn't have the portfolio that is ready to be a environment designer. I didn't have the technical breakdowns. I didn't even really quite grasp what the day-to-day work looked like. I thought it was just so I think it was a learning experience that you need to find out what art is being produced on a daily basis, not the pretty concept art. You need to be realistic about what they're going to pay you for hourly or salary in this case. Yeah. And you just need to have that in your portfolio, and I didn't have that perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess maybe that comes a little later. And so, when you're talking about your upbringing, do you think the fact that you're living in a smaller city, because you've mentioned you weren't exposed to as much art as you wish you were to, do you think that kind of played a role?
I think so. Yeah, I don't really have any regrets looking back, but I do wish I was exposed to even more art. And especially when you start going, like once you leave like smaller town where you do have just like movies, video games, a small gallery maybe, and you start going down the entertainment path, everyone's kind of passionate about the same kinds of things. It's a pretty nerdy space. Yeah. There's nothing negative about that. It's a fun, nerdy place where everyone can compare all the, mostly animated and game online media. But it would have been nice to find an appreciation for other types of art earlier, just for like the thinking and conceptual aspects. The why am I doing this? How can I do it? How can I approach it a little differently than what the norm looks like?
That's what we chatted with Amory about a little bit. That
Emily
Carr being the Emily Carr being a conceptual school in that aspect, it's truly missing in schools that are preparing you for entertainment industry. And maybe that's fair. Maybe it's fine, because I know their goal is to just get your job, and I think it's a good goal. It's better if you do get a job, but then you figure out your way, because you'll have free time and you're not starving, kind of thing.
No, it's
But the encouraging thinking in any way, it's, of course, it's so valuable. It's just, see, I always go back to this issue where it's you're just so young. Like most, I didn't have the interest in just learning as many things as I'm interested now. I don't know if there could have been a way to get me inspired to, like you're saying, you know, pick up like a Dawkins book or something, or I don't know, outside of the art world.
Can you like pinpoint really particular incidents where like your mind just shifted or expanded, kind of like?
For example, I don't remember when I just there at a certain point, and I'm sure it must have been gradual. I realized how much I care about history and the fascination by the world, and the fact that there's so many people that came before us and they built insane amount of beauty, architecture, history, or just all this interest. I don't know why. I always say it must have been just young and stupid, I guess. You don't realize the grandiose and everything outside of you. Rather, there's got to be some sort of Darwinian kind of way in there where you probably when you're young, you're probably supposed to focus on yourself so you survive. Meaning, go get bigger, learn how to hunt. The rest comes later. It's like, for men, when does your brain stop developing? It's something crazy like past 20 years old or something like that. I think for women it's at a younger age, but that's why a lot of guys are just dumb. It's probably part of that thing.
Ouch. Leveling the playing field.
I don't know if I should be saying these things, right? I'm going to get a lot of hate. Anyway, so I don't know if I can pinpoint, but for example, I don't know if you've seen work by Sterling Hundley, illustrator. I can show it to you later, but I remember seeing his work, and it just was so not like anything I've seen before. And then it looked like the images were telling stories, and you read about it, and it's such a sophisticated, mature way of telling a story and creating a piece. And I've watched some tutorials by him, and he talked about his decision making, and truly everything counted. I think that he did this piece of Johnny Cash, and I think it was Johnny Cash, and he wanted to show him the transition of him younger and older, and somehow being able to show his journey in one painting. And I think he did multiple paintings of him at different stages, and he ripped them and collaged them. So you saw through different layers Johnny Cash. It's like, but you saw multiple versions of him kind of showing through the pages, and he would collage, he'd draw on top, use multiple media, and that kind of stuff was just, to me, that was so mind-blowing, because the guy's truly thinking outside the box and bringing meaning to it, and I was like, wow.
But you have to add that, right? You can't just look at it and say, on the surface, I don't like it, and walk away. Like, obviously there's a marriage of both where it should be appealing, but you just being fascinated by the making of, or the steps, or the outside the box, that's probably where you found the value in it, right? Like,
definitely. It was like taking a step beyond, kind of like what you're saying, was taking a step beyond just a picture. It now had a story of its own. And this is slightly connected with the idea of art that does need a write-up for you to get it. But I truly believe that the most successful art is the one that doesn't need anything else. You just see it and you get it.
Yeah, that's a pretty fair argument for people who are trying to communicate a point clearly. Sometimes the art that doesn't clearly have a point is easily dismissed, but it could also be the thing that is so unusual you want to know.
That's what makes it good? Yeah, true.
And the other thing is I've learned, and I had someone in the entertainment realm, there was this particular niche of art I was kind of ripping on one day. We're looking online, and I was like, man, I don't know why people spend their time making this. And the guy was like, what's it to you? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, why are you so mad? Let him make what he wants to make. And I was like, no, but like, look at this. Like, he's just, people are just clicking on it because you can see an attractive woman's butt. Yeah. Like they're using sexuality to get clicks and all. And he's like, so what? That's what they like. And he was, 5 minutes later, he had my mind changed. And I said, when I see art that I really don't like, just accept that other people do like it.
Other
and
people find
it's
value
not,
in it.
It's not hurting me, Like, you can't walk around with like your own lenses on and judge everything by what you at this point in time think is good. like you have to leave room for everyone else to get in to you, right?
That's a very good approach. It's a more humble approach. And I think that you're just leaving yourself to learning. In general, like the first reaction and the negative reaction is something you have to question in yourself.
Yeah.
In many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we all have it. Like you all have flash judgments of people and visuals and like, but do you see the glass, half full when you didn't like a movie, but you still deeply were affected by a few scenes in it? Yeah. Or do you turn around and trash it and move along, Yeah.
And this applies to ideas. I think this applies to life. I think as a way of being, but maybe as a counter, do you think you as an artist, you're responsible for the community and you're responsible for the art field that you're pursuing? Do you think you have a responsibility to represent it, or if not represent it, to do it justice?
What kind of community? For example?
So what I mean is that you change your mind about a picture of of whatever naked girl, because, and I think I know what you're talking about. I mean, it was something we talked about as well. But do you think by creating that kind of work and it being valued more than other pieces, do you think it's making this scene, the art scene, maybe that's a digital art community, do you think it's taking value away from it by making it cheap?
You could look at it and say it's really juvenile, but you still have to have the perspective to find the pieces that are not juvenile, if that's your overall assumption. So you could throw adjectives on any community and bring it down, but I think as long as you're still looking for the valuable ones within it, you can still kind of keep a critical, healthy approach to it. So short answer is yes, but there's also, you can't dismiss things because then they're never going to get in and combine with other things you believe in, right?
This is very difficult because we're just talking about opinions and preferences, right?
For
and
sure.
then there's no single one. So that's why this conversation typically goes nowhere. Or it just ends up being, well, okay, you like what you like, I like what I like.
Yeah.
But imagine you and I were in a crew.
Mm-hmm.
We're in an art crew in our group, and then we're very sophisticated. We're talking about the world. We're trying to help endangered species. We're trying to bring up these issues.
Good, yeah.
You're painting war scenes. You go to, I don't know, you go to Syria or something. You try to talk to the local people. We set up a fund. We make paintings about their lives. We expose people, and then all of a sudden, I get in and I just start drawing like a fashion. I just start taking pictures of like people on fashion shows and just painting those people. And people are like, dude, what the hell? Like you're making us look bad.
Yeah.
Is that fair? Because I feel this could be the same argument for this art community as a whole. Because there's two of us in a gang, and you're doing good, like you're doing something valuable, and I come in like, oh, that's cool.
I guess if you have a tight community, such as like a partnership, you hope you're on the same page. Otherwise, that community is not going to last.
Kick me out.
Yeah. Thinking of that example on bigger perspectives of like the game art community or the drawing group community or your friend community. Like I have lots of friends, for example, that don't make the kind of art that I'm drifting towards, and we're still awesome friends because we just have different motivations. So choosing where to draw the boundaries of where a community starts and ends is very hard.
Good point. I'm just, I'm testing out ideas. I haven't really made up my mind, but I know that there's a value. Like, it's good that people do different things because that's where the more different aspects we follow, the better. Because then we're just gonna inspire each other in different ways. So yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So there's space. There's space for me to be in this group of artists. Just drawing pictures and pretty close, drawing people in pretty close. Right?
Why not?
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I got permission.
Oh man. Yeah, I don't know. Like if anyone does look through my art after, like there'll be a politically minded piece about consuming less, and then there'll be something cute, and then there'll be maybe a development piece about a fictional world of characters, and then we'll go. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. So there's probably a big smattering of different interests, and that's because I am not one single facet of a person.
Jake, you hypocrite.
I know. Man, you can find hypocrisy in every stone you flip over. So,
I'm joking.
Yeah, I know. No, but it's Yeah, it's true. I'll probably end up talking a lot and not following through concretely, and that's just, all you do is acknowledge it and continue to try.
I'm very tempted to start every podcast by saying everything I say is not even a well-defined idea. It's gonna be it's gonna be evolving and changing, and I'll flip sides every hour. But I don't know about yourself. One thing I don't notice about me is that I'm maybe because I can. It's gonna sound cocky, but I feel I can listen to people, and that happen. I feel like I can take on people's ideas, and so usually I end up going from side to side just because I can see maybe a reason in both. So for me to make a really solid opinion about something, and this is where I stay, it doesn't happen that often, and so it's rare for me. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. Anyway, so that's why. Maybe that's probably why I like doing this. It's probably why I like talking to people.
Yeah, and asking the hard questions. Like I was thinking about this earlier today, and sometimes my opinions are really strong, and I'm pretty careful with my words. Like I don't want to offend people, but sometimes I'll just lay down a really strong statement, and it's not intended to hurt anyone's feelings. But what happens is when somebody presses back, so say you have an opinion on, let's bring it back to art. If you have a strong opinion about a certain kind of art, and you throw down the ultimatum where like this kind of art is cheap and it's you don't remember it an hour after you consume it. We don't need more of that. There's millions of that already. I'm not going to make that. Someone might come up and challenge you, and that's where you learn. So sometimes when you throw the hammer down and someone else throws the hammer down, that's where you are going to learn. Not stewing about it in your head like you're some egotistical guy who knows everything, because when somebody shifts your thinking, you've just learned more about yourself than if you just didn't express it, right?
Luckily, we're willing to listen, right?
Yeah, you need someone like yourself where you are good at listening and taking ideas from people. But I think it does pay off to have some semi-firm ideas, slightly malleable but semi-firm, because that's a sign that you are trying to craft yourself and how you see the world and communicate it.
Mm-hmm. You're just figuring out your values in life, basically.
Yeah, and they should always be shifting.
But I guess at a certain point you have to make a decision. There's a weird correlation to politics in this conversation right now. We're not going to get into that, though.
Yeah.
Avoid it at all costs.
Yeah. My conversations on art seem to go back to life things more than art.
Good, though. I think life should inspire art.
Right.
All right, let's see where we're at. There's too much to talk about. We got through your origin story, although we just kept wandering around. I like how this is shifting. Yeah. Let's see. I think you put a lot of value in versatility, at least seemingly looking at your portfolio, or just not even portfolio, just your work. It seems like you've traveled through different mediums. I know you like drawing and painting from life. You use gouache and watercolor. I've noticed that. Ink, you dive into, you do a lot of digital work. Has this been have those been conscious decisions?
Yeah, for sure. It's a little bit like, you produce a piece of work that is quite successful, either like everyone else likes it or you really like it. It's very easy to dissect what was good about that and then just continue on that path and professionally have that persona or that look that you've crafted. And that's one way to go. But mine is more like, I think I will learn more if I try something I'm not familiar with and I battle with it. And in the short term, you kind of question whether or not that's a good thing, because professionally people might look at you and say, you're all over the map. And other people will say, no matter what you do, I can still tell it's yours. Yeah. And so I think no matter what you create, you'll still have an identity in it. And that kind of frees me to want to do new things, because when you go and do that graphic style as a break from that like more realistic 3D rendering, you might land somewhere in between that you never would have found otherwise. Mm-hmm.
This is quite refreshing because, but so do you not crave to be a one style person?
No.
Because often, and it's probably one of the most asked questions is like everyone asks like, how do you find your style? I feel like I almost start cringing at this question at this point, but.
Oh, you're asking me?
No, well, if you want to answer that, sure. I'm just saying, like, I think this is a really common question, but I like the fact that you don't get stuck in one thing because at a certain point it works and people like it. Because what I wanted to ask is that when it does work, are you tempted to make more, or that's when you try to get out of it?
I don't seem to have to think about this too much. So I might just naturally drift from one thing to the other and have so many work in progress things going on that you can kind of just flow to whichever one is aligning with you at the time. And sometimes you'll obviously work on a series of pictures at the same time, like just like when you're preparing for an art show, you'll have something that's unifying your thoughts and you put out a whole bunch of pieces for it. But you usually do those at the same point in time.
Do you feel like go ahead, sorry.
Oh, just like you'll design as like 10 paintings or 10 characters in a certain style in a certain world, and then when you're done that, you're on to the next thing and trying to make the next thing different.
So you don't feel like you need to have that look. And I only ask that, for example, if you wanted to be an illustrator and you want to illustrate for magazines, typically I'm noticing the trends, and although you have mentioned you want to avoid the trends, but I've noticed the trends that people get hired to do the thing that they do because clients know what to expect and there's not going to be surprises. Having said that, are you thinking about that? Or are you specifically trying not to go that way?
Well, that would be the downfall of that plan if I did want to do that, for sure. I would kind of just, like, if somebody was patient enough to approach me with that kind of idea, I would just say, like, look at my work, find one that actually caught your eye, and and we'll start in that sphere. And some people really have this anxiety that people are like hyper real 3D rendered stylized work is all the rage right now, so I need to produce like a dozen pieces that has that. And sometimes I tell them, like, just do 2 good ones and they will still see that in you. And so I hope that would save me, as in, like,
honestly, so from me hearing you speak about this, I think this is why you fit so well into the design entertainment industry, because you have to be a different person every project, right?
Yeah.
So I think that I'm guessing that's probably why you like it, because every time you're on a project, you're like, well, now be this person, now try this.
Yeah. As far as working with different superiors, different coworkers, different show style, different workflows, sometimes different tools depending on how 3D gets used. You do have to be really malleable, but I am finding and this is not in a conceited way at all, I find I'm kind of principled in many avenues. So I do have, expectations of how I hope productions will go and people will treat each other well. And that's the thing that might get in the way of me being versatile, is I am principled and I have specific things I hope for.
Do you want to give some details here? What do you mean by that?
I just like hope, like, any place I work, everybody is like extremely respectful and they lift each other up and they don't, like, nobody's getting bullied or brought down. You have to remember you're still making cartoons. We're here to help each other. We're trying to work as a team. So this is just
this is beyond the art, though. This is community, like a work environment.
Yeah,
right?
I'm probably topic hopping like mad.
No, that's good. Keep going. Yeah.
The question goes for 5 seconds and I drift somewhere.
We'll travel around it. No, but maybe let's talk a little bit about this. You're talking about what you're expecting, and so actually, let's do this. Can you mention some kind of worst, best behaviors, or not behaviors, more so, but like practice that you've experienced in studios?
Sometimes it could be something as simple as workload, for example. Sometimes if you see someone on your team sweating and they're slammed, they got a huge delivery, is your team the kind of team that will band together and take some work off them and help them out? And sometimes with things like that, I'm a little too strong-willed and principled. I think
Me too.
In many ways, I'm, like you said, like, incredibly versatile in art, and I think my personality is quite versatile, but I want to remain principled.
Okay, I see what the point you're making. Yeah. But this is like beyond art. You have these standards of how you hope that the ethics and the practices of studios or people you work with are
Yeah.
on a certain level.
Yeah.
That's great. And then for people who don't work in animation industry, it's got to be honest, there's a lot of mispractice. Is that a word?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
just
no matter what your job is, like,
a lot of standards being
I've
dropped
done
down.
some pretty interesting jobs, like leading up to entertainment design while I'm saving up money. Like, I climbed internet towers to install wireless internet. I worked at a log home building yard, and at each of these jobs, you'll have the same kind of things I'm mentioning, right?
Mhm.
You'll have true collaborators.
Yeah.
And artists, I will say, as an aside to that, are sometimes can be more introverted on average. Sometimes egos can brew in artists, and that's a bit of a stereotype. But there are certain realities you face when you're working with groups of artists, and socially it's difficult for a lot of people, and I'm pretty sensitive to that as well.
I'm trying to think. I was going to ask the best environment you've been in.
It would probably be I worked on the Escape from Planet Earth.
Okay, so it's another film, right?
Yeah, and that's the one I mentioned where it was incredibly collaborative, and yeah, it's really honestly wonderful to see so many artists pooling their work together, and, watching scenes come alive with each department. That's probably been one of my most rewarding experiences.
That's awesome. This is why I realize I like working in a studio is just it's being surrounded by those artists. I've left some jobs previously in the past just because if it's only 2 or 3 people on a team, it's not as challenging as if you're surrounded by 6, 9, 10 artists and everyone's submitting their work every day, and you just feel like they're pushing you because you just see good work, and that's really exciting to me. I think because especially that when you feel like you're part of the team and you don't want to be the person who brings the team down, there's this extra motivation to just be like, okay, let's do this. I want to be as good as you guys and try to make better work. That which is why maybe bouncing back and forth, like you're saying, from freelance to studio is maybe a healthy way to do it. So you get some both.
I think so. That competition can drive a lot of people, and sometimes it can do the opposite, and it can push somebody away, and people don't all have the same personality, and I think we ought to just really pay attention to other people's preferences and where they're at, because you can't treat an entire team the same way. And on the second point you made, I think my skills have actually gone up in terms of ideation and problem solving with multiple constraints, because that's a lot what design is. Must be this big, must have this function in the game. I've improved that a lot in freelance because I've got to turn in work every single day in my current flow. It's so different than a studio. I get an email, it'll say, spend 6 hours on this theme, show us what you got, hand it in that night. Next morning, new email, new theme, new object or character, show us what you got.
It's not as free as an independent as it sounds.
But it's
not as romantic, right?
I don't know, it's quite incredible, like the pressure it can put on you, and that's why I do the hourly thing we talked about. But your work has to look like 8 hours of drawing. Like if you hand it in, you're not there in the room to review it and stand up for yourself. You got to hand in what looks like 8 hours of good work. And sometimes just knowing that I don't have a long-term contract with whatever this is, they could pull it and give it to someone else. Those kind of pressures actually made me really responsible and improve.
And also now you're a solo business, or you're the face of you rather than a company to back you up. Now this is you, so you really put yourself on a line in that way.
I mean, if something goes wrong, like luckily my most recurring client, the project manager is incredible, and I get lots of flexibility. So if I'm kind of sick, he'll say, hand it in tomorrow. But I lost my train of thought. Put me back.
Cool. I'm not gonna put you
Where
back.
Are we going?
We're gonna. I'm just gonna throw this one at you because I gotta make it harder for you. So
I'm not giving you enough of my inner self.
It's enough. I'm just gonna keep pushing because I can. Why do you make personal work?
As I feel crappy if I don't.
That's it.
Yeah, like
Wow. Nice and simple.
yeah,
I'm like that as well, but I'm just hoping for something bigger.
I can go. Yeah, as you can tell, I ramble quite a bit. Like I just have a lot of thoughts, and
Good.
I want to learn to be a little more concise. So
And you did it.
yeah, yeah. So I guess a little bit, one more tier away from that. You know, sometimes you do need breaks.
Mhm.
You need to maybe absorb new information, like from things outside of your sphere, like I mentioned. But I get kind of fidgety and approach, like I don't think I've been like truly depressed for a long time. Maybe growing up in pockets,
Mhm.
but you know, the sadness starts to increase if I spend a long time feeling like I'm not being useful. And I think even if I don't have a big following online, I don't really care too much right now. I just have to be being useful, saying something, making something
Productive.
You know? Yeah.
To me, that
I don't. I even like. I don't have any video games within reach. Like things like that. Like I've already taken big steps to make sure that I don't get pulled far away from being passionate about art.
yeah, it's simplified your life.
Yeah.
But I asked this question because I'm hoping to find more these truth for myself. Because just like you, often just keeping busy and working is that's part of it. Yeah. I think I'm especially lately. I'm constantly trying to search for something beyond just making work, right? And this goes back to the conversation we had about finding meaning, and then meaning within the work, and often for a reason it takes more time to try to figure out why to make something that actually just makes something. So I find, for example, it's something I spoke with a friend recently. There's comfort in just making work. There's comfort in just making studies. It's right in front of you. You're going to get better. The skill goes up, but it's easy and it's good. But at a certain point, it's like making an impact. And how do you do that? And then how do you make it so that your work speaks? And honestly, you see other people's work that are just fine artists, like who just do studies. And James Gurney or Richard Schmidt, you look at their work, the sceneries, and they're powerful. And a lot of artists do that. It just maybe just personally, I don't find it enough.
Right.
Or maybe the society is putting a pressure on me to make it feel like it should be more than that, but maybe it is enough.
Yeah, like, looking back at like the entertainment idea, like sometimes we just need to see something pretty because we're going through a rough time. Like it's totally true.
People love paintings of landscapes in their houses. They're not going to get something chaotic. So
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Even like the walls in my apartment, like I think I went around and counted, and I don't buy expensive works, but I think I've bought around 15 like local artists' original works.
Very
and
nice.
They're super different.
Yeah.
Like I think that like when I think about that based on what we've talked about, like it kind of makes sense as well.
Yeah.
Because a couple things if I can remember them. One I read a book called Art as Therapy by Alain de Botton, and that one kind of made me rethink art. It covers like the museum spectrum, and then also why we as humans use it. But there are times when like life is overwhelming and you need to look at something calming.
Yep.
There are times when you're bored and fidgety and you need to look at something challenging. And I think what I took away from that is art is a tool to help your inner life, right? It's very easy to always grab for the gratifying, video games and things. And for me, it certainly was. But if you start removing those and you look for more challenging art, I think that tool is actually what's building most of my personality in the long run.
It's the challenging art.
Being challenged and seeing art as something that should challenge you, which is very unpopular, I think, in the line of work I'm in. Like,
yeah. I'm thinking right now that I think the calming art is a lot more popular, and I think this probably speaks to that need. The reason why people even consume art is often it doesn't have to be destruction, but it is like the peace. You think about music. And then when you think about that same analogy of complex or challenging art in music, I would say it does go darker or maybe deeper, complex, and once again, Emery and I spoke about metal, and that's
Yep.
it's not a very popular form, but it's a very challenging form. I think it's meant to be a challenging art. I think. I mean, not everything. Once again, I can't generalize, but it's often it is often the more complex and maybe the more challenging you go, the less people are going to actually like it. Right?
Oh yeah, I guess it goes into niches. Like I don't know how many types of metal there are, but there's like a lot, right? And I don't know enough to start naming more than like three or four. But
and so
yeah.
on this topic, do you care about having popularity or following? Because if we're
not a lot, you know. Like I think part of what lets me be me is not really caring what people think.
I do get that from you, and I like it.
I mean, if I did, it would be nice because I would be able to maybe find funding for some of the longer term projects that I've started and had to pause because I don't have a way forward. And that's, that would be nice, but that's not going to dictate
that's not you.
My behavior and what I make.
Yeah.
I did want to say like the music is actually like a really nice analogy for where I think your average person is lacking in visual art because everyone gets music instantly, right? You can put on your favorite album when you're down and it's comforting. You can put on something energizing when you need it. And if you're an artist sitting at your desk, like rock through tons of work just with like, if you like electronic like yourself, or you want metal, you want some energy. But when it comes to visual art, I think we don't think about it in the way of how useful it is, even though it's around us all the time. Like we don't seek it in the same way beyond what to pick on Netflix or what movie at the theater.
Do you think we should demand the same out of it?
I think so. Like when you ask somebody if they're into music and they say hip hop, there's a really good chance they're into the meaning, the lyrics,
the beats.
Yeah. Sometimes it might be the instrumental side of it, but that's a sign to me that already somebody's thinking like, what's the purpose behind this music other than being like pop music where the meaning is not the point, it's dancing. So
energy.
When I find like favorite artists, it's the lyrics. Like they're putting their life artistically into this unique package where emotionally or storytelling wise it will resonate with me and it'll last. And I'm like, that's art to me.
But this is why I think music is just a more powerful medium. It's just more powerful than visual art, and we just can't help it. It's got to be in our nature. I think like the sounds,
it works with our brain a little easier, right?
And it's this example I use that. How often do you feel like you need to listen to the same song versus you need to see a painting? Pretty much. How often do you think like, oh, I can't wait to see this painting. I got to see it 10 times today. Nobody does that. And so then you look at it as a medium, while art is very powerful and brings a lot of value and it's important. It's like art as a visual art. Music seems to resonate with people so much more.
It has a lot of advantages too. Like it's one of your sensory arrays that you can keep busy while you visually do something different. There are a lot of probably natural, I don't know, biological reasons as well why music just works.
Did you say you play or you write music?
Hey?
Did you say you play music or do you write?
I did learn guitar for many years, but never quite got into songwriting and things like that. But
I'm curious. It's so good.
There's one other thing. Going back before you mentioned music about like what's satisfying to create and like what's enough. I have a book that is just for brainstorming and writing down ideas, and that's one of the best things I've ever done. It might have come from the advice of another artist in a talk long ago, but it's mostly for writing and barely thumbnailing ideas. And it's a thick book. You fill it up anytime you get ideas, and the funny thing is like you get such a burst of energy just from getting ideas. And a lot of people popularly say, well, everyone has ideas, but the more you write them down, the more they start to cross-pollinate. And like you can pick up my idea book and flip through it and you know what I'm about if I'm executing this book properly, right? You know what's on my mind, what I care about. And the piece that's actually on the cover page for the the podcast is like 3 of those pages combined into what you see as a statue of critically endangered North American animals. And
I like how you call it Future Memorial.
yeah,
that's pretty sweet. I mean, that's
I know you've talked about naming artwork before.
I did.
I tried to pick something that adds a little, but
that
is it bad?
No, it's great. I think you completed it with that name. It completed the idea. So as far, do you plan to take this idea farther, or was the illustration the final execution of the idea that you wrote down?
I think it's healthier for me to think that it's final, and I will still try and make similar inspirations or executions of the idea, but it won't look the same. Like different rendering, different design, different maybe different media. Who knows?
You said. So in the beginning, you did say you wanted more out of your artwork than just the image, right? Like by swaying away from the entertainment industry, I guess you're going towards more like the impact and the value. And so about the art that you plan to make in the future, I know I asked you like why you make personal work, and you said because to make personal work, because it doesn't work otherwise. But so we touched on this topic of kind of bringing good to the world and using your art as a tool to just better others' lives. As you're pursuing future projects, I don't know, is there anything you can mention that's in the works on your mind, or do you have you built up a goal in that idea book of something you're going to pursue soon, or you are already, that could be making an impact?
There's a few I mentioned that I had to put on pause. One of them was on like the human condition, where I interviewed, I think around 22 people, and I asked them about their anxiety, their loneliness, how they see strangers, how they cope with that side of the world. And my plan was to pair their interview with illustrations and bring my caricature and character design all together, because I've drawn like thousands of people in coffee shops, tons. It's like I want to take this but add meaning to it, and that came from like, what are these people thinking? How are they different? How are they similar? And that one's been through 2 prototypes, a book and a web page. Hasn't come to fruition, so maybe it's a journey piece where it's going to evolve into something.
You think you'll finish it?
Oh, I want to, man. Like when you get down to like the real talk that I like, and I have a big history that led me up to this point to care about it. Other people's doing interviews, maybe like yourself, asking real questions. There's so much wisdom sitting in this little clipboard I have, and I feel so bad that I didn't follow through yet getting it made into something, because as much as I want to, I'm not a marketer and a business person at the same time. So that's an example of one. I have a couple more, but
give me more. Or
the other one's the Spore one you mentioned.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about that, because I do want to talk about a couple of projects on your webpage.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, website. Go ahead. So
yeah, that one I filled like a really large sketchbook with like 500 unique plants that are inspired by microbiology, because it's sad to me, but also inspiring how like quickly we're eradicating certain parts of the planet without even understanding the organisms and how biodiversity is working on small scale. So this project is kind of applying like a playful, more whimsical, imaginative look to, plants and mushrooms and their habitats, and it's all being inspired by real biology.
Is it almost like what could be, what can be?
Yeah, like, well, when you look at certain things under like electron microscopes, and they look, for lack of better words, like crazy alien, like like pollen grain cells, pollen grains, I mean, and the structures, and when you look at feathers under a microscope, and just everything becomes this whole other level of fascinating that before the electron microscope we had no idea what was happening. And just the idea that we're just romping around the earth, destroying countless unknown amounts of life, and we don't understand the intricacies. So that's the serious part. The fun part is I also love plant design in general.
Same. Yeah.
And anytime I've seen like concept art books where they explore an alien world and it feels familiar but it's different. So those are the two main facets that came together.
This is probably the best way to do it. I like the idea of describing where it's got meaning, but it's also fun. They just you're combining the two, just the loves, and it makes sense because then it's digestible because it is fun, and then there's this extra element to it. I like to think, or I hope to approach more like personal work or just even art shows in that way. I think, like you mentioned before, that appealing aspect of an image is very important there as well, beyond just being meaningful.
Right, because that's the trigger to investigation, right? And in my case, I haven't found the way forward for that one to make the educational part of it, because it needs to be some form of multimedia, and that's a big undertaking.
I love this idea. I think this is where VR has to come in. If you got some really, really nice cameras that do zoom in as much as an electric microscope?
Yeah, electronic
microscope. And then you journey through that world.
Yeah.
You don't need concept art, really. It's like this word.
And I have a good friend who does VR, and I'll make him listen to this later, so he knows that I'm open to collaborating on this. But
I think that would be a really cool way to complete it. Or, I mean, I don't know if you're going to get into like modeling and creating these worlds, but just to me, because maybe I know I'm fascinated by nature, maybe similar to you, where wandering through just some spores, but like on a microscopic scale, that would be so fun. That would be so fascinating and interesting.
Yeah, and part of it is like you would never understand the scale of the world you're looking at, and you can, go inside that little pocket that turns into a cave, and it is, and the multimedia idea where the education would come in is that as you click around through the world, it would actually deliver you facts about like how mycelium, like mushrooms, actually spread in the ground, how species interchange nutrients to each other, and there's some like beautiful connected message about some of these aspects, but it's very hard to marry those things together as one person and complete a big project. But
it sounds like so much work. Once you know what it takes to make it like a 3D project, this is too. I think that's why so many artists do end up making comic books, because it's like you can make a movie by yourself as a graphic novel, because at least you're composing shots, you're telling a story, you are using camera work and emotion, but at least it's manageable as one person, and as a single human to create a certain amount of work. That's why I wonder if I'll have to make something like that in the future if kind of these big ideas do develop. I don't know.
Yeah, I want you to, because I think like
I'll try.
I think approaching something that's meaningful and is about something more than me, which I think is a bit of the departure from practicing entertainment art in my free time, because that's more about like, look what I can do, and that's not a slant to anyone, but the idea itself of pursuing some grander project, even if right now you can't do it on your own, you might be able to hit a milestone and now be able to talk about it. And I have on my website, in that section, there's 10 families of like really out there plants that came from the same seed, and I have that as a milestone to at least show people, and maybe in the future someone will be like, hey, I want to make that. If you make if there's a way, see the this is what I want to talk to you about, is if there's a way to monetize it, to make it happen. But there's that issue of bringing art and money together, which you kind of need to, right? If you want to make something big at this point, you're gonna have to, but then the challenges that come with it are they're big and unfortunate, and they adjust your initial vision, and that's kind of how it works, right? Unless you have the time and space to do something and just put it out there for free, like the more similar, the human condition project I talked about. Like I was just building a website with social tools on it for free. Like I didn't want to monetize it, but something like this, if you're looking at building a complicated app or a web experience, you'd have to find a way, or you have to do a vertical slice and then try and use that as your pitch, something like that.
But so I wanted to ask you if there's something you think about the how like the financial side of can affect your project, or does it? Are you conscious of, if you do want to have your idea made in a certain way, then it would have to be complicated or adjusted? Is this something you wonder about, or just create?
Hasn't really come up
No?
so far too much. Like not long ago, I had a friend offer to buy like a painting off me that I
Nice.
wasn't planning on selling, and so I don't actually engage in selling things I work currently. I produce currently, so I haven't actually been approached with having to change my my own personal art
Yeah.
just to get something funded, other than client work, but that's not for me.
Yeah,
you know.
exactly. That separation is really important.
Yeah, but I will have to hit that in the future if I wanted to get one of these things out there and try and have an impact. But
It's really inspiring to see people who are able to make something on a grand scale with a high budget and yet maintain a value in it. And that's why, once again, I think we're doing a lot of loops, but going back to you're saying the project's a movie that would come every once in a while, and it would hit you so hard because it actually has substance. And I honestly, most artists probably do want to make something with a lot of substance. Is just what happens along the way, and once you get to the final product, right, that maybe just doesn't get there as much for whatever reasons.
yeah,
But yeah, when something like that comes around, it's like a boom. You're like, what? It is
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
possible.
it is.
Is there anything? So, can you think of something recently that was an piece of art in any form that did strike you, or actually delivered on something valuable?
Oh, I'm sure there is. I'm a little,
Blocking?
I'm a little swamped right
Those
now,
are
but
hard
like,
questions. Yeah.
but like I guess one person I was just looking through their book is a guy named Sean Tan. He does illustrated books, and sometimes you just see the amount of like life experience that is going into these stories, but they're so serious and just playful enough to pull you along. I'm a big fan of his work because it feels so human and so important, but it looks the part and you want to investigate. So when I see certain artists like that going outside the box and marrying the ideas and the aesthetics, that can do it. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it's a struggle. Like being passionate about art, you could go down really long, lonely pathways where you're not finding success because you believe that art should mean something, and the world might not help you out along the way.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's a question of like I could be enjoying other facets of my life instead of being so passionate about art contributing to the world.
So true.
Right?
This is a sacrifice of it. I think. Yeah, he's sacrificing time and I guess connections for this pursuit.
A lot, yeah. And sometimes I look at people who just make things that are fun looking and they have fun making them, and people have fun looking at them, and I'm like, why can't I just be more like that?
Yeah.
Why can't doing cool just be good enough?
So your brain is just not wired that way then.
No, at times, yeah, of course, when you're on the job and someone says, come up with some cool animals for this, you're going to get into it. Yeah. It's your job to get into it, right? But when I'm in my own free time, I'm not looking to impress anybody with cool stuff. Like cool's not good enough to me, if that makes sense. I don't want to be too harsh, but
ignorance is bliss. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so do you ever think about how you also fit into the art community in that way then?
You're so community minded. I have to keep
I might keep going back to this. That's interesting.
No, it's good
Yeah.
though. You're always thinking about like one step back about community and where people are fitting together. It's nice. So
also it's part of it because of the conversations we had previously.
yeah.
The topics, because
No,
I know you
good.
care.
Like, yeah.
I know you care. Even, for example, sometimes just looking at our common friends online, and someone will post a piece of art, and then I see your comment, and it's actually like it's thoughtful, and you actually took the time to think or address something or notice. And I don't see a lot of people. So I think
That's interesting.
maybe the reason why I asked it is because I can see you being engaged in the same way.
Yeah, I think it's probably true because I wanted. Yeah, likes are cheap. Likes are just
True.
so damn cheap,
Yeah.
and I don't like, sure, I like them, you give them out.
Feels so
but
good.
but to me, when somebody stops and looks at my art and they type something that is not just cool, it shows me that they paused and thought about the work and then wanted to reciprocate something to me. It's the opposite of cheap, right?
Yeah.
And you know, instead of me whipping my thumb up one more time and going to the next thing, I could leave a nice comment and close it. That's so
Yeah.
much better to me. Like,
Yeah, it feels personal, right? In
Yeah.
a medium that may not feel so. I'm guilty of using emojis
oh,
as comments. I saw a recent post about this. Jake is not a fan of emojis.
yeah. It just, yeah. From a high level, it's kind of like the Idiocracy movie where we're dumbing language down more and more and more. It's not that they're not fun or useful. But yeah, you spend some time on Instagram and you get real about the communication that's happening, and
It's
yeah.
nice and quick.
Oh yeah, nice and temporary, forgettable.
This is why
Sometimes.
I'm happy to have you in
Oh,
here
man.
because I'll just bug you about all these questions for 2 hours. And
Yeah, well, I
'Cause I get to.
disappoint people who are, they seem happier. I swear I'm pretty happy. I'm just
yeah.
actively critical frequently, and yeah.
We'll have to, in the end, we're just going to make sure at the end of this podcast, you're like, no, in reality, everything is good.
Yeah.
Life's good. We actually don't hate it too much. we just every time we talk, it just goes down this path.
Yeah. Oh, man.
That's where we get to.
Yeah. And if anybody new discovers my Instagram account after this, please leave me some fire or something.
Oh, yeah,
just
fire emojis. Come on.
to spite me.
Yeah, pile on.
Yeah.
I love it. I
Why
think
not?
they're fun.
Yeah.
I just really love the emoji of 2 hands and a little, is it a diamond or a star? See, I don't
Well,
remember.
there's I
Just
don't know.
like
There's
blessed.
a clapping, and then there's a, yeah.
Hashtag blessed. Okay,
Yeah.
nobody sees me making
Yeah.
gestures
yeah.
right
It's
now.
pretty
but
good, though. Yeah.
I love that one.
If you are friends with somebody and you send them a funny GIF, it means a lot. If a stranger sends you a funny GIF, you're like, ooh, what's the
Yeah.
correlation here? And the same with emojis. Like if you've got a
Mm.
close friendship with somebody, that emoji could mean a lot.
That's a good point. You have to know.
Yeah.
You have to know what the person means by it. I get it.
So a lot of my criticism was like random people coming to your profile, dropping a bunch of emojis saying, come look at me.
These days,
That culture is what I was really criticizing, right?
Well, these days I feel like half the time it's bots, right? It's like people buying bots to get more attention to them.
Yeah, that drives me mad. Like,
Well, see, but it's because
yeah.
you probably don't get it because you said before you don't care so much about being very famous. While I do know a lot of artists, including myself, the validation does feel good. So it's like you doesn't seem like you're pursuing that side where for so many people, having that branding and a face online
Right.
and is a real thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, like kind of what I said earlier, like if you mention a picture, like say the cover picture, I'll just refer to that
Yeah, yeah.
because people might have seen that if they clicked on
Yeah.
this. I remember like the conversations that happened because of that picture or the comment that was left. I can't tell you how many likes that picture got. I don't remember. I have no clue. But
good.
I do remember friends who are like congratulating me on, I don't know what the success from whatever facet they saw in that piece, whether it's the rendering or the research, which was pretty hard.
It was great.
Oh,
It's
man.
complicated.
Yeah, and just so people are aware why I was kind of upset and made that picture, there at the time of doing it in the database, there's 644 critically endangered North American species.
Just in North America.
This is critical. This
Wow.
is the level before, like, extinct.
Wow.
And there's 5 levels of severity. This is 4 out of 5.
Wow.
And just finding that out, like I was at the library, picked up this book because like sometimes I just will wander through the reference or art sections of the library, and that inspiration was just from this book,
Yeah.
just a listing of things that we are destroying.
Oh, that hurts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
look it up online, go through the spreadsheets, and get that big total, and then it just really hurt. I'm like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And
Well, soon AI is going to come and kill us, so all good. Someone will take care
Yeah.
of this problem,
Oh.
of this human problem.
man,
right?
please be good. Please be good for a long time before you turn, please.
Hey, but we are the problem, so
Yeah.
we're going to have to be taken care of eventually.
Man.
But this is a good example of almost like, to me, the right kind of inspiration. Like if you want to go down a path of making meaningful work, look at all this real stuff, right?
It's hard.
I think
yeah.
there's a lot to look at from life experiences and just life to just maybe pursue something valuable. But see, I keep going back to this thing where I know this doesn't have to be so, like, and it's cool to just make cool art. It's fine.
I'm just like I'm just based on experiences I've had. I'm restless and not okay with only making cool and fun, and that's me. And if other people are, and that is their happy lifestyle, I don't look down on people. Like when I say cool art is not good enough for me. That's just speaking from my motivations. I'm not lowering other people, right?
It just makes us sound like haters. That's all we are. We're pretentious artist people.
Well, that's what happens when you have any kind of opinion. You're putting on some kind of power scale between different people.
Yeah, it's all our fault.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my plan so far, and hopefully, along this conversation of finding meaning through work, is I think look at similar avenues that you're talking about, and so that to make me care about something. So when I am sitting and down and drawing, even if it's something that's pretty fun and cartoony and whatever, I just hope that the backbone of it, kind of like the spore idea you're talking about, there is something extra to it. Because I realize about myself that will make me feel good, I think. Right. Because now I'm trying to reach for this extra thing.
And I would say it, just advice for anyone who is looking to be, maybe a tad more introspective with their art. Like you don't have to approach it like an illustrator where the picture has the message loudly in it in order for it to be successful. Like
it doesn't need to spoon feed, right?
Or just, it doesn't even have to necessarily be in the result while you develop ideas. So the spore thing, you're just like, you look at it and it's just a bunch of weird, maybe cool plants.
Fun shapes.
But you don't know that I watched a documentary on mushroom developing that just blew my mind, seeing things in the micro scale in slow motion. Like you don't know the inspiration behind it, but just by me creating those strange plants, like I am actually working on my inner passions. So I guess what I'm trying to express is that like you don't need to constantly have it on your sleeve the whole time, the inspiration for it, but have that idea book and constantly be trying to go a little deeper, and that path is what I'm just working on.
It's like do your homework.
I don't know
basically.
the answer.
Yeah. You're doing and I think this is just, and so what it sounds like to me, what you're saying, it's just being well-rounded. You want to be a well-rounded artist, from beginning to end. It seems like creating something, and it can be as simple as just like being accurate to something that you're producing. Yeah. What's your ideal lifestyle? Give me a good life for Jake.
Man, like right now is excellent. Like having some freedom in schedule so that you can produce artwork and projects. You just need to carve out enough time and space to actually develop ideas and be an artist. That's what kind of makes me happy. So you need some work to be disciplined. You need some social time to not be lonely. And having time to like explore all of the inputs you're getting from the world. Like I have space to do that right now.
Sounds like you value the struggle though, right?
Oh, it's I guess I have to.
Well, because your answer was not my ideal lifestyle is not having to worry about work and just making my own stuff. You didn't say that. So I'm guessing you do like the limited aspect of time. Is it pushing you?
Limited aspect of time.
Yeah, because now like a third or half of your day is work for someone else. Do you mind it?
I kind of like spread it out through the week, so I could end up working 4 hours every day of the week, and that kind of suits me a little more.
So you do have a good setup then for that.
Yeah, not all the time, but that's kind of ideal. Is
the ideal lifestyle in Vancouver for you?
It doesn't have to be necessarily. No, I don't know. I do care about like consumerism and a lot of the things we're doing to the planet, and I feel like sometimes my lifestyle does fit that very much because I'm a little bit like anti-luxury. I save money. I don't splurge much. And I feel like all I really want is freedom to learn and contribute. So learning, getting all the inputs, contributing, making art, whether it's just as a bystander making something quickly, or it's something where I want to be a specialist and express a long-term project. Just having the ability to do that is all of the goal, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So could equate to be simple as working less
Mm-hmm.
in the long-term future, but I don't have like, I want to have Coronas on the beach, I want to travel the world. I don't have that kind of idea.
Do you know why?
I think we spend a lot of time. Wow, this is so deep.
Let's keep going.
Anyone here like trying to learn about art? I'm sorry if you don't like my perspective, but I think we're so quick to escape and imagine that life is better everywhere else, and
Mm-hmm.
so the idea of punishing the earth with flying planes around the world constantly and always longing for something else doesn't sit well with me. You know, like.
But what if it opens up your mind to something that you couldn't have just experienced before?
Which is completely valid, but I always remember there are over 7 billion of us, and let's just say 5 billion of us in the short-term future are capable and able of traveling constantly. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to take its toll, and it already has. So,
That's a good point.
I don't know. I don't want to sound like I have any ego in this kind of way of thinking. It's more that, like, the more you think globally, the more I want to do what's right in the biggest picture we can.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you want to be extra cynical, look up all the facts of how many airplanes are in the air at any given second, and
That's why I'm curious
go
to
from
see.
there.
I'm curious to see what you or what many people would do, are able to do, especially with art, about this issue. It's very interesting because often it does feel like we're limited. Maybe we're limiting ourselves, but I'm really interested to see what you end up doing about this, because there's a lot of good causes. Can you actually make an impact and a little dent in it? We'll see. Yeah.
Just the idea that you're trying is like back to the nobility aspect.
Hopefully.
Even if you like fail, it's the thing, like you said, when you look back, like, what did I spend my time doing? Were you trying to be a good person?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And as far as your idea of like getting inspired on traveling, like absolutely. I'm not saying it's bad, but like, I think we need to learn everything in moderation.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever considered any other career rather than art?
I think there are lots of things my personality would align with, but not long-term enough to settle or pinpoint anything, really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was a volunteer firefighter for many years before I moved out here, small town. I've been a teacher. That was incredibly fulfilling. Just having mentorships with people one-on-one was kind of the best part of it. So there are other avenues that would suit me, but I don't know.
This is the one.
What do you think?
This is the one.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
It must be.
Yeah. Just so many instances of art proving to be powerful and needed.
Mm-hmm.
I think are just going to keep driving me.
Very cool. It's great to see people in their in their place.
Yeah.
Because many people have not found it. Unfortunately, it's difficult. Some of us are lucky to know what we like, but unfortunately, I think for a lot of people, it's a different thing. It's like answering a meaning of life, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because at least you found a way to reach it or go towards it, not reach it.
Just constantly going towards it. It's like I didn't have a typical college experience. I don't have a degree, but when you're entering, from what I hear, like university, and you have a very generalist first year and you don't know where you're going, like I think it should be the same with art. Like,
for sure. Yeah.
I don't know.
What's your happy place?
Happy place. Oh man. When I stop thinking, I guess. Like, yeah. When there's periods of true appreciating the present moment, like if you have an hour between appointments and you just start wandering.
Ooh, yeah.
Those are like actually happy places where you're just taking in, you're not trying to exert energy and judge things. You're just kind of wandering and appreciating what's around.
Do you meditate?
I do not. It might help me sleep if I got good at it, but yeah, I don't sleep very easily, so
That's
could
gotta
be in the future.
That would probably be your happy place then, if you
Yeah.
do wonder too much. And it sounds like you do think a lot. I think you're the kind of person who probably the brain doesn't stop. Am I right?
Yeah,
Yes,
for sure.
Guessed it. Who do you most admire? Is there people you look up to?
There's probably a long list of artists, and I'll spend a lot of time mentioning ones that people might not know, but basically any artist that is approaching their craft with a lot of like the essence of humanity in it somehow, whether it's in the songwriting, lyrics, or in the artwork. Anything that sticks with me long term and usually revolves something around the human condition or some truth. I guess I'll mention one artist named Steve Cutts.
Okay.
He's like a cartoonist, kind of like political cartoonist, but he goes to like the really far edges of saying the horrible truths about materialism at Christmas time, for example. And he will just go to the extreme, but man, sometimes I really feel what he's talking about. And he just released a film called Happiness, where he uses mice as the main actors of the film.
Okay. It's a live action film, you said?
Animated.
No, it's animated. Happiness.
Yeah.
Okay, I see here. Cool.
Yeah, if you just Googled images for
CUTTS. Yeah. Look it up. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
Sounds very interesting.
And
Man, you do go dark, huh? Unfortunately,
yeah.
maybe when you start paying attention, it just goes dark, and then that's kind of how it works. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. So that guy in particular is probably the darkest influence I have, and perhaps I'll go back to the Sean Tan example, where it's at many times serious, but it's obviously more playful, more charming.
Cool. I'm looking that up. I just got to save this so I can
Sure,
check
go
it out
for it.
later.
Yeah.
Nice.
And that fellow might cover anything from colonization to what it feels like to be lonely as a child or as a single child, whatever. It covers a good spectrum in different presentations.
And
just like real artists, like real stuff, not fluffy stuff, not forgettable stuff.
Yeah.
I like the real, true artists coming through.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You just sometimes it's hard to consume too much of it as well, just like anything else.
Yeah.
You can't get stuck. I think maybe versatility comes in that place so that you're not just
I think so. Like just having many different ones, and like when I mentioned performance art, I know we're almost out of time, but
unfortunately,
Marina Abramovich.
Okay.
She's like a performance artist that changed my mind about the craft completely, and there's one notable one called The Artist is Present, where she would just sit, and you could sit in front of her, and she would just emotionally connect with you, and just the idea of someone putting their body through that for one-on-one connections with people, despite how many people there are in the world.
I couldn't help but feel like it was.
Do you know the one?
I know exactly, and I watched videos, and I feel like my first reaction, of course, was I couldn't help but it felt like pretentious. I think because of the grandiosity that they gave it. I think anything that gets put into a large museum, a large organization, of course, maybe you can't help but feel so especially when it's called art. And I think it's such a sensitive subject because it's anything and everything. But I think to truly appreciate it, I would have wanted to be there, because otherwise I see it, I kind of get it, but to be emotionally connected to that experience, I think you got to value it. You need to be there. You need it to be there.
Either be there or learn more about what led up to that, and that always adds value. And in her case, there is a really good documentary, and it goes through her life of all the things she did up till there, and it includes the clips you've probably seen in that documentary. And when you have context of all of that, boy, it can hit pretty hard.
Awesome. All right, dude, man, we didn't even get to talk to you. I really want to talk about some more about your teaching experience.
Can you do any super lightning round, or is that too quick?
I think I'll just ask you the last one, or maybe two. But what's the lesson, or what is something you would have wanted to tell your younger self before you went into post-secondary, before you went to Art Institute?
I knew this one was coming. I think I think I wove it in
About being exposed
earlier.
to it?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. Just being exposed to it could just be the right teacher or someone saying it the right way, but just keeping your mind open to a broader range of art.
And then, what do we expect from you next 5-10 years? What's going to happen?
Hopefully lots of different looking ideas and different looking executions of art. Could venture towards comics or interactive media, probably still some entertainment. Hoping to reach for some good morals and tell a story that's really worth telling.
I'm
That's
very
what I
excited
hope.
for you.
Yeah, you too. And we'll collaborate for sure.
It's going to happen. I think that's definitely going to happen. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. This was, I think we just weaved and bounced off ideas. I'm looking forward to listening back to this one.
Nice.
I think we just traveled through so many topics, and I think we'll have to do it again.
Yeah, I hope it was fun for people, even though I don't have a very good radio voice.
And, yeah, you do. I had a lot of fun. Just, I guess, throw out your website, Instagram, if you want to.
Oh, sure.
Where people can find you, and
website is jakecollinge.com. So it's Jake, Collinge. And then Collinge Jake is the handle on Instagram. And those are the ones I use the most, I think.
That's right. Okay, people, go find them. A lot of amazing work, and I'm sure a lot more to come.
Yeah,
Very
thanks
excited.
for having me. It was great.
Thank you. And then if you want to come hang with us in the Secret Humble Drawing Club, just look it up on Instagram. You'll find all the info. That's where we hang out, complain about life, and just try to figure out this art world. Kind of like we're doing here. It's quite beautiful. Otherwise, if you want to learn more about Creative Theory Podcast, find us under that name, YouTube, iTunes, Instagram, Facebook, and all that. So come say hi. If you know some artists I should talk to, let me know. Otherwise, thank you so much for listening. Thanks, Jake.
Thanks very much.
All right, people, have a good one. Make some cool art. We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye.